Well, we have Jim Monk with us here this week, and I really appreciate your time, Jim. And like I mentioned to you, we're going to start things off with your contact information so to make sure everybody is aware, because I'm pretty sure you're going to have a few people reaching out to you after we talk about how they can increase their net operating income on their multifamily properties in a very unique way. So let's start things off right off the bat. Where would they find you if they want to follow up?
Absolutely. And thank you for having me on board the conference here, JD. So conference call. But they can reach me at LinkedIn. That's the very first place you can go to. So Jim, Jim, Monk, M-O-N-K. You can locate us through that or Clozzits. And that is Clozzits, which is our website, www.clozzits.com. And they can reach out through there, and either myself or one of our team members will respond back to them as quickly as possible.
Yeah, so we were chatting a little bit before the show, and like you said, I want everybody to point you to our YouTube channel because we're going to have this video there as well. But what we're going to be talking about today is closets to a certain somewhat, and other multifamily net operating income, how to improve a few things, and some trends that Jim has been seeing in the market. But what I want to point out is if you go to the YouTube channel, you're not going to be seeing some fake Zoom backdrop. That's actually a product behind Jim's back there. So this is going to be an interesting conversation because I understand that you have found a really, what in the end, especially when you're talking about multifamily, an inexpensive way to increase net operating income, and that's focusing on closets. How did you even come to this concept?
Great question. So as we were talking about before the show, passive investor in multifamily. So I've been an executive in different areas of different industries. And one of the things that came out, if you've been in the industry long enough or been an owner of property of any sort, is how can I increase my rents? And what we found was, talking to my business partners, was we had done all the hard surface upgrades, the backsplashes, the countertops. We had done the flooring upgrades, paint, faucets. We'd done all these things, and through conversation, we kept saying there's very little more that we can do as a value add to the property to either justify rents or increase our net operating income so that we have a higher level of asset value to the property. And so talking to a friend of mine who was one of the largest renovation companies in multifamily, who's now my business partner, Stephen Bolos, I asked him, I said, look, you've done hundreds of thousands of renovations. I'm curious, what area of the apartment hasn't been touched yet? Because it seems like everything's been touched. The common areas, there's just not much in the way of optimizing these things without building new or doing something that's very highly expensive, and the ROI is not going to be there. And he said, well, and he came back to me a couple of days later. He said, there's only one area that I can think of that hasn't been touched. And he said, the closet. And I just sat there and I said, what do you tell me? He goes, well, it's wire racking. It's MDF, typically. It's nothing that's sexy. And I said, well, that's really interesting. He goes, yeah, I feel that there could be something there. And so I went on this self journey of evaluating and saying, well, what if there was a way, from a business case perspective, what if there was a way that we could create a furniture grade product at a nominal cost point that we could install and generate revenue from? That was the kind of original hypothesis. Mm-hmm. And so what we did was we decided, coming out of manufacturing, that was my background, we need to manufacture the product, we need to control the quality, the design and everything, and we need to cut out all middle people as much as possible, because I've got to drive my cost down low enough so that it makes business sense. And so it took us about a year to develop the product, get our tooling and everything established. And we then set out to meet with companies and have the conversation of, if you install this closet system, we believe you can get a 3 to 5% rent increase. We beta tested with a bunch of groups. We believe it will do this for you. here's the cost. And we believe, based on our numbers, that the ROI is going to be between 25 and 37% over a 3 to 4 year period. And we went about that working with some of the largest groups out there that we knew of, and they're quite large. And I don't mind mentioning companies like Bascom, Nightvest, UDR. These are companies that have north of 50 to 100,000 doors. So they're huge.
Mm-hmm.
And we figured if they could tear it apart and come back and say it doesn't work, then we'd go, okay, there's not really a market. But instead, what they found in markets like Dallas, Phoenix, Austin, Houston, Atlanta, and so forth was, and mind you, this is only 2 years ago. So we're still very much a startup at this point in time, in my opinion, JD, is that 2 years ago when we were having these conversations post or pre-COVID, they felt comfortable going, well, we can get a $25, $35, $50 rent increase. What we found was they did get that. And what that really resulted in was a lot of these groups coming back saying, hey, you're able to invest, let's say top end $250,000 to $300,000 in a property. And based on the cap rate we're seeing of, for a lot of them, it was at 4 to 5.2%. They were seeing returns as much as $3.2 to $3.5 million. So I would take that deal every day. If I invest $250,000 to $300,000 and I get 3.2 to 3.4 million back, I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously COVID hit, and surprisingly, we slowed down for a little while, but we have ramped back up even harder now because, again, the same hypothesis we had is being proven out, which is we're a low-cost amenity upgrade, and we do this on the turns and make-ready. So we're ripping out a lot of old stuff, installing it within a couple hours for our clients as those properties or those units become available, and then they're leasing them up with that increased rent immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we got to get started. It was haphazard, as far as we just kind of fell into it, but we realized very quickly that no one was approaching it in this manner and designing it as not the closet itself, but as a program. And so what we do is we go in and we have a calculator that we created that allows us to look at each property and say, basically, how much are you looking at a rent increase? How much is the initial investment in each unit? What is your cap rate now, or your exit cap rate you're looking for? And here is what you could see out of it if it supports that. Mm-hmm. And so we've taken a very business approach to it versus, oh, it looks pretty and people may buy it. It's no. We have case studies. We have proof of this. And if you do this, it works. And so what happens is many times they come in, JD, and they'll say, let's do it in a couple properties. We'll do it. And then you'll get the call one day, hey, this is really working. Can we go into 5 more properties, 10 more properties with you? We're like, sure. So that's how we get started 2 years ago. Very humble.
Yeah. This kind of reminds me of some strategies that we had been trying, with a few rental properties, because we're in a environment, and I think a lot of people are, where, if vacancies are low, you're trying to incentivize people to come to the property with free TVs or free month's rent or a variety of other things. Weirdly enough, at least in our market, some of the things that seem to stick more is like, instead of using that money to incentivize them with a free TV, we would shiplap a wall or something, or
interesting,
making a slight change to the property or a slight upgrade to the property. That seemed to be more appealing to the resident than a free TV.
Right.
When we're doing that A/B testing, but
Yeah. And what we've seen is today's residents, especially post-COVID, but even pre, and we call them residents for a reason in the industry, right? They're not just renters anymore, they're residents. They're looking for a place to live and stay and be part of in some regard. And what we have found is, if you're looking at the millennials and the gen, the boomers as the big groups there in the rental area, what we found is millennials are looking for resort type amenities all the way through the apartment, especially now with us having to shelter in place or stay at home a lot more. And then the boomers are looking for more storage space. My mom's a renter herself. And what I found is she has 60 plus years of her life and needs a lot more storage to take and put it in places and keep what she wants and what's dear to her. So we found that they're willing to pay more for that, for either the experience or the practicality of it, versus, to your point, a concession or something that's a month off. And I will tell you what's been very interesting to us is how it's been adopted. Things that we would have never thought. We approach it this way, but now we have clients that have come to us and said, "We're not doing a concession," which is basically you're giving them a free month. Instead, they'll give them a free closet system, build it into the cost, and it's brilliant because what it's doing is it's increasing the value of that property. When you're giving a concession, you're not improving the property. You're just trying to retain the resident and have your you know have your either lease ups or have your retention levels be high enough that you're looking for. And so that's been interesting. I think another one is tax ramifications. It was very clever of one of our clients to say, look, when we want to defer profits on a property, what we want to do is try to figure out a low cost solution that we can do that in that's impactful but allows us to defer that. So we want to keep the money in the property versus paying taxes on it. A way they do that now is they'll call and say, hey, we've got profitability, we need to spend that now, and we're going to either depreciate it a couple of years or we'll write it off in a 1-year deal on the taxes. And that's been a very clever approach that I would have frankly never thought about, is using our closet system and our program as a way to defer your profits and the taxation on those profits.
Mm-hmm.
And then the adoption of it I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say is that, you brought up the millennials and the boomers. A lot of the people that are listening to our show are likely newer to real estate investing. In fact, a lot of them probably get into that single family home scenario, at least for the first time. What are some of those other trends that you've been seeing, amenities, if you will? That I think the closet thing is definitely a low hanging fruit. I mean, that's something that is almost, I hate to say it, but I'm surprised we haven't seen. I haven't thought of this. I mean, it's kind of.
You're not the first to say, is it really that simple? And what I would say is, yes, but there's some caveats to that. If you want to go out and be a big manufacturer, and we've got 3 plants, and now we're driving our costs down. A lot of it has to do with cost. Wood prices are extremely high right now. But we're sourcing from all over the world now. We have to get an aggregate amount that drives our costs down low enough that makes business sense for the multifamily industry. But to your point, some of the areas that we're seeing obviously smart devices come into play as an amenity upgrade, such as your Bluetooth door locks. We're seeing, wireless Bluetooth speaker systems being installed in some of these places. Smoke detectors now that are able to be monitored remotely if you're away. And now even with some of these groups, leak detection units, where they make sure that if the toilet's overflowing or a hot water heater ruptures, that it's very quickly notifying not only the resident, but also the apartment complex, so they can prevent or mitigate damage, to lessen the damage to the property and to the possessions. And so those are clever ways. You're seeing a lot of that in the electronics front. You're really not seeing as much, in my opinion. I mean, there's basic level upgrades you can do in these properties, but a lot of that's been done in the last 20 years, and there's not been much that's done. When you go out and look, maybe stylistically there's some changes, but there's not a lot of change that's occurred in the aesthetics of the apartment industry, in my opinion. And so you're seeing it more on the electronics front and these different types of upgrades. What I will say as well is, you talked about the audience being those who are getting into the single family. We, again, not thinking through what the applications fully were, just what we want to focus on. Student housing has become a big issue, or not big issue, a big area of focus for us, as well as senior living. And then we started getting calls from large groups that have single family residents, REITs, or companies like Tricon is a real good example. I think they have north of 50,000 individual single family homes that they own. And they come in now and will say, look, we want to put this in as an upgrade because typically individuals that are living in our properties, our single family homes, these are true residents and they have families and they have a lot of things going on and they want more space.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for something that makes them feel good, and they're willing to pay even a higher price point than those in the multifamily side of it. And so, surprisingly, we've seen increases as much as 10% to rents in the single family set where we are either installing the product ourselves. And what makes us different as well is we can either install it or we have a tremendous amount of clients that we will ship the product to them with the design and they will install it themselves or use their local uh, trim carpenter, handyman, maintenance folks to do the installation themselves of our product. We have video sets to do this because we recognize very early on that we're going to have those groups out there, those individuals like you're talking about that may have 5, 6, 10 duplexes or something.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're doing it themselves. They're managing themselves and they go, you know what, I'm handy. Can I install this and get my rent increases? And so we thought about that at the very early set, but we went after the bigger companies so that we could get major market traction.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that that strikes me, based on just what I'm seeing behind you right now, is that it's such a big difference compared to what a average rental would typically be would see. We
Correct.
mentioned previously that we're usually seeing wire racks, cheap looking. um this type of upgrade really, you've already mentioned how these people are typically trying to find someplace they're going to be living for quite a while. This is frankly very homey looking, which is what catches me off guard. If you walk in there and I have some rentals today, for example, where they don't even really have a traditional closet. Right now they
Right.
just have a wire rack and a clothes hang bar, and it's near a college, of course. But
Yeah.
I could definitely see something like this in lieu as a significant upgrade to these college kids.
Yes. So I like to use this demo and I grabbed it because this is, again, I told you it's not my office, but my sales folks will always go, here's the traditional wire rack.
Yep,
We
yeah,
keep it.
that's exactly what's in that unit.
Yep. And this is what I say we're fighting. If we're fighting anything in the industry, it's the social, it's the norms, it's the common commonality of this, which is a lot of people have this or they have MDF. And the argument we make is this will not justify a 3 to 5% rent increase.
Hmm.
The wire rack will not do that. This is utilitarian. It works. But there's a difference when you look behind me and what the emotion is eliciting, the experience. Like you said, homey, inviting. It's a number of factors that we recognized very early on. And that's what we came in and really pushed was your your clients want this. And what you're looking at right behind me as an average closet, this is typically with, shoe tower and so forth. And we even have it where it can be retrofitted to have drawers. So now you're talking something that becomes furniture.
Hmm.
Without the drawer set, our average closet throughout the country is around $750 installed. That
Hmm.
is our average. It's because we're cutting out distributors, retail, and we go direct to market. And so if you're looking at materials alone, depending on where you're at in the country and shipping, freight and taxes, we're $300 to $600 for materials. And so our money, frankly, is made not in the install, it's in the materials. And so we're pushing out the materials as much as possible to prospective clients and to clients so they can either do it themselves or we can do it for them. Um, and it looks a lot better. And so when you're considering that type of investment, it doesn't take long for it to be um, cash flowing and giving you a solid rate of return. Some of our clients
Hmm.
get it within 2 years. The average is between 3 to 4 years.
Sure. And if you just to remain, I'm getting caught up in this conversation, which was also, I have to admit, surprises me because we're talking about closets, for crying out loud. But if you want to reach out to Jim, I want to make sure you have your contact information. It's interesting you bring up LinkedIn. That's becoming a bigger and bigger way for people to reach out. I'm just It's always surprising to me that LinkedIn is becoming so popular. So definitely find Jim Monk on LinkedIn. But head over to Clozzits. That's with two Z's, CLOZZITS.com for more information regarding this. What I think is striking there, what you were just talking about, Jim, is the cost of this. If you're considering giving a free month and losing out on that revenue, I mean, you're in most situations, you're talking about 1 month's rent,
That's correct.
if not
That
less.
is correct.
Yeah.
And it's improving the asset. So even if you don't make it today on your client, you can make it on a lease up. So we have clients that do this for as a way to say, hey, we're going to lease up. You know, you want to get a lease, we're going to upgrade your closet for you. Yes, there's a 3% increase on your lease up. It's not uncommon, but now you're seeing something for that. And so that was a very unique marketing tactic that a number of companies are using.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I would tell you is, this is our 5th generation product after just 2 years going back in the field and doing a lot of stuff. I probably spend more time thinking about this stuff, JD, as far as the quality of the material and what it is, than our clients will ever think about it. But it's because we don't want to injure anybody, but we also want to be something that's going to withstand the test of time.
Mm-hmm.
Especially being a passive investor, I don't want something that's going to become a maintenance nightmare for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing that I always looked at. And so for us, and I'll show you a crosscut. Not that I don't normally show this, but this is 3/4 inch plywood
Oh,
with a
sure.
melamine finish. This is not even painted. This is a scratch resistant product. This is designed to not even be painted. So our product is designed to withstand 10, 15 years with abuse, or challenges, without any problems. And it's because we just want to put a very solid product out there in the marketplace that can withstand. I'd like to look back on this 20 years from now going, I remember the first one we did and it's still there and still standing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
no, you read my
so that's
mind,
the plan.
because my next question was going to be how this holds up, because one of the reasons why I think that you said your main competition is the wire racks, is because that's pretty low maintenance. You know what you're
It
getting,
is.
and that stuff just kind of lasts there forever and I'm going to speak with experience, until some college kid puts far more clothing on there than you possibly could imagine, and they start pulling the screws out of the wall.
That's right.
It's what I don't want, and when we're talking through this video conferencing call, it might be a little harder for people to see, but it looks like the press board type stuff that, I've had experience with that where they warp and stuff too, but based on the material that you're showing me, I mean, if you're talking
So
10 years of maintenance free, I mean, that's really darn good.
we even get down to the screw level. So all of our product comes with its own screws because we were so critical to the point that you made. Our product is tested to do 400 pounds per piece because the moment you say, oh, there's no way they're going to put that kind of weight on there. I have seen things put on here. I'm going, really? You're going to put a part of an engine block on here. Okay, I get it. It doesn't make sense to me. But the standard in the industry is either an MDF or a pressed particle wood-based product.
Right.
And this is the normal stuff. And it's okay. But the moment it gets water, the kind of any major humidity going on, or just someone that's not as forgiving on it. I mean, a lot of times you'll go in there and they're warped, you see it. But that's why ours is a cleated system. It's got cleats in the back to prevent warping. To something like this, when you compare the two, I mean, my experience has been, and this is even thicker, the particle is, the ply is going to hold up a lot better. And, if we ever have problems, you can just kind of cut it out. Or, if we have to adjust things, we can cut and put screws into it. You can put wood screws in it with MDF or particle. It does not take wood screws well, or something like that. Because, again, I'm thinking about, and my team is, what if a maintenance person has to come in and fix it? Well, ours is a true product that can withstand putting wood screws into it, 2.5-inch wood screws into it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very valid point, and one that we're very proud of in the marketplace. And so I know a lot of people think, well, there's not much in the way of differentiation. A closet is a closet. And what I like to talk about is it's an untapped revenue source for you.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. You just have to think on it on those terms. And the easiest way to do that is go put one in yourself. If it's not ours, someone else's, and really see if you can support a 3 to 5% rent increase. And even in post-COVID environment, we're busier now because, as you probably even know, and this is one of the things you were talking about, is what are the trends? I will tell you that the money is sitting on the sidelines. There's a lot of money out there, and transaction activity is really picking up as it relates to acquisitions and selling off product right now. As far as portfolios or properties, we're seeing a major uptick in that, and I don't think it's going to go away in 2021. I feel very confident that the market's really heating up as far as transaction activity,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where we're pulled in a lot of times, is on the value add, because now we have clients that'll say every new property we purchase or every new just unit we purchase, we want the product immediately put in there so that we can recognize those rents, and so they're already putting us into the calculation for return. And that's the best
Sure.
place to be, frankly.
Yeah. This has been a eye-opening episode in the fact that what I really wanted to do here is change people's mindset a little bit regarding options and possibilities, not only of increasing the rent, but sidestep the concept maybe a little, or rethink the concept of those freebies that we've been used to giving, whether it's the free month of rent or the free TV or the, and consider at least uh, improving the property, like you said, adding those resources and funds to a way to make the place a little more homey, or to make the property more valuable. I think you've easily accomplished that. I mean, that's really something to definitely check out. Again, I'm going to point people to your website, clozzits.com, Clozzits, and find Jim on, I know you're on Facebook and Twitter as well, I'm sure. But
Yes.
definitely find you on LinkedIn. I always end with one question though, and I don't want to end this quite yet. Is there a question that you wished I would have asked today, or something we should have covered?
Um, from my perspective, and this is always something, and I think the word I always come back with is that the industry as a whole is used to a level of conditioning that, and if someone has an idea out there, I'm very big on entrepreneurship and growth of small business. But if you have an idea out there, whether or not it's in the multifamily space, but specifically multifamily, if there's conditioning and you hear a no, you really need to investigate that and continue pushing forward on this. It's what's made our country great. It's what's made our country, companies that we all work in, you know, great and pioneering. And so, yes, we've heard no. We've heard people say, I can't believe you really get that. And I can show them proof. I can walk them through a property, but there's a level of conditioning in the industry and in many industries that is ready for disruption or change. And so, to your point, when you're looking at a mini sets or you're looking to upgrade the apartment or single family residence, you know, talk to your residents and see what they're willing to spend on this. I mean, see what's happening, because there is massive change occurring. I see it all the time. I know we talk about the technology sector, something that you're familiar with as well. The world's changed, and it's changing very rapidly today.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing I would say, is that um, it's not so much a question or things we haven't covered. It's just that I think you and I are speaking a very similar language of change, open-mindedness, and really addressing the needs specifically in multifamily, but it affects in other areas of our lives too.
Right. Well, I'm going to definitely make sure I have all of your information and links in the show notes. I
Thank you.
really appreciate your time here today. I am going to, like I said, I hope you, we, before we even started recording, I thought we were going to probably talk longer than I had warned you about. I was trying to keep, I feel like we went a little abrupt. I kind of put the brakes on, realizing that we're over 30 minutes into this conversation, and I told you I wasn't going to take more than 20 or 30. Um, I appreciate your time today, and I think if you're open to it, maybe you can come back on and we can talk a little bit more about some of the trends you're seeing in the marketplace, especially you have a very unique opportunity and perspective, because I mean you're actually talking to multiple multifamily investors and providing these solutions, and it's really valuable.
I would welcome it. I very much have enjoyed the conversation today personally, and would be very open to that. We are working, literally the call I had before this was with an interior designer for new construction. And so I get to hear about some of the really cool things that design's doing and building materials that are being used, which we didn't even get into, but it's very fascinating. I'm just an individual that's very curious. You probably can figure that out when we were talking before the show. I was very curious to know some things, and so that really drives a lot of what we do. And I would be very open to having a conversation further about that because it's a passion of mine, and likewise yours, obviously.
Yeah, no, you're always trying to find ways to squeeze things out, and especially in a situation like we're in right now with the lockdowns and everything
Oh
else.
yes,
It I'm sure that the vacancy rate is escalating in certain places as colleges are not opening and homeschooling, and
true.
there's a lot of things that are causing issues in the rental market. And I think all of us are trying to find ways in which to make our properties and more attractive, to not only retain the people that are there, but to attract those new residents.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that would be a different conversation. Something I'd, again, welcome, because you have new legislation coming into place in states like California around rent controls, which is
Hmm.
very interesting as well, and what that means to the investors and the residents. And like I said, we're seeing it in pockets of the country and how people are dealing with the world we're in today and what that looks like moving forward. So, would be very open to some of those further conversations, JD.
Well, I really appreciate it. Again, I'll make sure the links are in the show notes, but I hope to chat again sometime very soon.
Absolutely, JD. Thank you again.